Apologies for absence or councillors away on business tonight. I've got apologies from Councillor Watson and welcome Councillor Bell, who's sub of him this evening. I have apologies for Councillor Parson, and I've got Councillor Hobley here tonight. And so welcome. And Councillor Taylor, I have apologies, and I have sub Councillor Hayden Phillips. So hello and welcome to those that are joining us for resources tonight. Any disclosable pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests? That's good. What we like. Right, and then we've got public participation. We'll bend them off. And then agenda item 5, minutes of the Resources Board held on the 27th of January. So we'll go through those really quickly. Are there any issues or questions or comments regarding those minutes? Everyone happy that I sign those as a proper reflection of our meeting? Lovely. I will do that. And then we'll move on to agenda item 6. Our internal audit plan. We've got Richard with us. So we'll our recommendation this evening for us to do tonight is to approve the internal audit plan in Appendix A and decide to continue to buy into the Ford Support 25-26. But I'll hand over to Richard because he's obviously got this internal audit plan that he'd probably like to talk us through.
Thank you very much, Chair. First of all, I'll give you, as North Warwickshire joined the partnership on the 1st of April, a bit of background on the partnership. It's growing quite alarmingly at the moment, so we're having a bit of a shift around. I'm taking flexible retirement at the beginning of June, but I'm going to stay on as the head of partnership. So Martin Shipley, who's with me tonight, will be taking over as the audit manager for North Warwickshire. So Martin will be the gentleman that will be coming along to future meetings to take you through progress reports and plans, etc.
Lovely. Welcome, Martin. Nice to meet you.
But
we're quite a friendly board, gentlemen.
I picked up on that already.
And we try and put you on first so you don't have to sit through the rest of our business. So that's always nice when you can get home and get your dinner.
Yeah,
wonderful. But yeah, just to keep you informed, so we had 7 partners last year, which included 4 boroughs for listed councils. And North Warwickshire are joining on the 1st of April, as are the East Midlands Combined County Combined Authority as well. That's quite a coup for us then. And Rugby Borough Council are going to buy our services in from the 1st of April as well. So we've got in Northern Warwickshire, we've got yourselves at North Warwickshire, Nuneaton, Bedworth, and now Rugby as well. So with that in mind, we're going to increase the number of staffing in there as well. So that's hopefully we're going to have a nice smooth transition on that one. But to move across the plan, this is one of our standard plan reports. So it takes you through, as we do for all partners, it takes you through what the role of internal audit is and how we put the plan together. It also mentions the internal audit charter. Now that's again, we have to bring that to under what was the public sector, still is the public sector internal audit standards. We have to bring the charter for each of the relevant boards to approve. So whichever one acts as like the audit committee for internal audit, so the resources board for this one. But of course, the public sector internal audit standards are going to be no more as of the 31st of March, and we then move to what is called the global internal audit standards that will take effect for the public sector from the 1st of April. So there will be a change to make sure we conform with those. So there'll be extra areas that we'll need to look at. So there will be an impact of this new standards, and we'll talk you through that at various meetings. So when Martin comes along, say to the next meeting, to bring the progress report, he'll also tell you what we're doing around the standards as well. Make sure we comply, because what we need to do is be conformant, not compliant, conformant with the standards, conformant across the CMAP for all the partners. So that's one thing we'll aim to do. And what the standards have done is they've changed the way things are. So we've now got, the standards now have 5 domains, and one of them, domain 3, is around the governance of internal audit, and that pulls in senior management at each of the partners, as well as their equivalent of the audit committee as well. So there'll be work to do around that and around the governance of internal audit. You know, basically what the mandate is for internal audit as well, which is, you know, what's its authority, and that's for the resources board at North Warwickshire to make sure that, you know, audit are allowed to do what they need to do. So be questioning Martin, for example, you know, have there been any restrictions on your work? You know, have you been able to get, you know, this is the plan that was presented to us at the March meeting. Are you able to achieve all of those? You know, has anyone stopped
No
you from doing all
barriers and
that?
things
Yeah,
like that.
that's it. So that's one thing that, as a resources board, you'll need to make sure that you get some assurance from Martin that he's able to do the audit plan without hindrance, etc.
And is that something that would be presented as part of a report? So, you know, if we're on schedule, off track or whatever, as one of the issues around being able to complete the plan is accessibility to the right people for whatever reason, and then things being put in place with deadlines and target dates.
Yeah, one of the things we will do as part of the progress report is keep you up to date. If we can't get things done, if there's a delay, then we will report to, you know, this is how the such and such a reason. This is one of the reasons we haven't brought a progress report to this meeting, is we brought one to the 22nd of January meeting, but it hasn't, through February, hasn't been a great deal of progress. We've been asked to put back a few of the audits, and they, as you can see from the plan, you know, we've moved those forward to this year's plan. So there hasn't been a great deal, although we've got 1 or 2 that we should get finished by the end of March, and they will be, hopefully, we're just waiting on responses from officers.
And will you make the progress you need to by the end of March? Or do you need us, you know, to do anything from this board?
From the work we've done so far this year, I will be able to present to you with an opinion at the June meeting, if there's a June meeting. Whenever the next meeting is, I will be able to present you with an opinion. Yes, we've done enough work to enable me to do that. One of the things we would do is tell you if we, you know, at an earliest opportunity, if we didn't feel we could. But we've got a considerable amount of work done this year, so we're happy. And the fact I've got it to draft report stage means that, you know, I've got an idea of what level of insurance is going to be and what we've seen. But once it's got the draft report stage, you know, getting out as far as just the nitty-gritty of getting responses back from officers on how they're going to actually implement the recommendations. So, yeah, in my opinion, we've got enough to provide an annual audit opinion.
Well, do you want to take us through some of your?
Chair, could I just ask a question?
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, if I remember rightly, the reporting dates moved and everything got squeezed in a much shorter period of time. With the changes, are the dates staying the same and they're achievable?
Is that for external audit? You're talking about the audit of the accounts?
Ah,
Yeah, I mean, for internal audit, we're not,
okay.
no barriers.
Sorry.
We tend to work on financial year.
Yeah, just keeps rolling.
Yeah.
I was just an engineer. I used to hate accountants.
Says used to.
So yeah, so if I take you down to the actual plan, the rest of the report is really talk you through the type of audits we can deliver. And one of the things that Martin's going to have to do as part of 2025-26 plan is do a complete audit needs assessment. You know, actually looking at one of the internal audit universe, as it's called, at North Warwickshire, to decide and then risk assess everything, and that will inform future plans as we go along. But what we've done for this plan that's on page 8 is to pick up on the key areas I think that I'm talking to Alison as well that we need and that I would need as a internal auditor to make an opinion on things. Not too much, you know, we've seen what's gone in previous years. What else is there to look at? So clearly information governance is an area we wanted to do in this financial year. We've been asked because of the monitoring officer looks after that, which is new in post, he needs a bit of time. So we'll look at splitting this down to a number of areas, key areas that I see it anyway for information governance, certainly data protection, records management, subject access requests and freedom of information. But we've also been doing some work this year around privacy notices. So there'll be a report coming out on that shortly to officers about, privacy notices. So that's one thing we could do without putting too much pressure on officers, because they should be on the website, go on there and have a look at, but not just the fact that they're there, but also what the content is. And so the senior auditor at North Warwickshire has actually looked at North Warwickshire's against others throughout the partnership and compared and contrasted the A-level sort of.
No, and do you have and do you, as part of the recommendation for that, obviously, if our privacy notice is either absent or not adequate, would you have a one that you would recommend through best practice where it covered? It's about us communicating with the residents, how we use their data and how we store their data, and they need to be able to access that fairly readily and understand what that says.
Yeah.
So, I think that's fairly important. So would you have one, do you have a suite of policies or examples where you'd say, actually, as best practice, this one covered, this is really good and it can be adapted to your organisation?
What the auditor's done is he's looked at all of them and said, this one looks, he's picked the ones he thinks are the best ones that cover the most and that type of thing. So I'll put Derby City Council forward from privacy notices as a good example, because the data protection officer there is very thorough in her work, I think, is the way we describe it, wouldn't we? Yeah. So they are good examples, and what the auditor's done is he's compared to those. But what he's also done is he said, right, these are the ones that Derby have got. North Warwickshire should have these, but they haven't got those, so he's flagged those up. Where he's come across privacy notices, he's then compared and contrasted them, and so that's not covered in this privacy notice that should be. So he's laid everything out in a nice big document for me to go through at the moment. So I'm currently going through that. So there's quite a bit in there to digest.
Okay, thank you.
Data quality is another one that's been brought forward for 24-25 that we wish to do. Then going to key area, treasury management is a key area for us. I mean, it's always financially high risk. So it's an area that we've not looked at for some time, and it's something that the treasury management principles and practices documents usually say. I'm not sure what not quite to say, but it usually says in there. Horrendously, sometimes it says audit will look at this every year, but I think that's overkill. So we try to tend to look at everything every 2 to 3 years around treasury management and give assurances on that one.
And do you have a bit of a list for? I know for a lot of internal audit, it works on a bit of a 3-year cycle. So some things you might look at twice in that cycle, some things once. And do you have a bit of a programme of how you would prioritise that? And then how you would then respond if you felt that an area became a higher risk through the risk management process?
One of the things we've got to do is do a risk-based plan. So we look at risk registers beforehand, talk to officers as well, and assess the risk. What we tend to do is we don't do a full audit on things. We'll tend to, within the scope of an audit, we'll pick out certain areas that we think are the key to look at. But sometimes we might have an area, we might look at 2 and 3 years, but we look at different things in those 2 years. So again, we do, and one of the things that Martin will be doing as part of his audit needs assessment is assessing, what the frequency should be for the various areas as well. So that will be our plan of how often we do things. Is it 5 years we base it on?
It tends to be 5 years, yeah.
So we have a 5-year strategic plan, and then we'll say this needs to be looked at in years 1, 3 and 5, or years 2 and 4, or years 1 and 4, depending on the risk of it.
It tends to break the elements down as well. It's to say, for example, 4 or 5 areas. You look at 2 or 3 areas twice in that 5-year plan to make sure that over the full 5 years you've got complete coverage on everything. High risk audits you'll probably look at more frequently, and the lower ones you'll look at on probably every 2 to 3 years, but you'll pick up the elements. So over the whole period, everything will be covered.
I think you had a question.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to come back to the data protection that we were touching on earlier. I've got no idea whether it's something we do, and I don't think we've got any relevant officers here, but from an audit point of view, I just wondered whether you'd expect us to be doing penetration testing.
Well, that's normally looked at by our IT auditor, but yeah, I mean, one of the things they will look at is is it cybersecurity and all that? One of the things they look at is, say penetration testing, can someone hack in from outside?
Yeah.
But he will look at the various things, but normally you can find, and I think he may have covered this in the last audit he did, that because there's several sites he can look at where he can get a feel for how robust the networks are, and what the security is around North Warwickshire's IT, etc. But yeah, he will look at various things like that to see, what are the IT teams doing? Are they doing this? Are they doing that? But are there any gaps in there? And it has been known in the past that some authorities have been to actually do his own testing, to see if he can actually get into things. He can be very sly like that, to be honest.
Something to watch out for. Councillor Mark Simpson.
Thank you, Chairman. I am somewhat reassured what I've heard. And I think there are undoubted benefits. I'm particularly pleased to hear the comparison between us and other local authorities and where that will bring merit in terms of, our system's as good as our peer group, as well as good as perhaps what we ought to be doing in any event. To an extent, my questions were similar to what you've just asked, in terms of what is the relative merit, the relative importance of each of these, and on what cycle. I remember in the past, we did have a cycle of reports of when we would have expected that internal audit to happen. So what I'm missing from this report is that detail on when would we expect the internal audit to be performed, and that assurance that actually we're going through the whole cycle of risk that needs to be internally audited, and when that will occur. I'm particularly concerned about that. As much as anything, I love the euphemism that things we didn't do last year are somehow brought forward. Actually not brought forward, they're late. And what I want to understand is, how are we dealing with the whole? This is giving me a snapshot of what we are proposing to do next year, this year, not telling me
That overall
what is
strategy.
the overall strategy, when are we doing it, how are we doing it, and how are we catching up with the things that we haven't done. Because if you like, Chairman, one of the things I'd like to know is, when was the last time we actually managed to get through a whole internal audit programme within the year we set? Because for all of my time on this board, I think the answer is never.
There you go, Martin, there's your challenge.
I'd
Gauntlet's
like
been
to
laid
know,
down there.
are we attacking all of the things that we should? What is the cycle upon which they are being done? And how can I become assured that that's where it's going to be?
Well, fundamentally, that's why we've joined this partnership, because we put ourselves under far too much pressure before with one individual to deliver the programme that we set out that was massively more ambitious than the capacity that we internally had to deliver it every year.
Only we didn't do it last year.
No, and so we joined this officially, didn't we, in September? We've sort of piloted, sort of kept some of the catching up for part of the year, and officially joined as a partner now. But we've been, when did you officially become partner? About November?
1st of April.
First of April.
Oh, right, okay. So why did I think it was as late as that? I don't know why. Probably it's whizzed by far too quickly for me. But Martin's task, as Richard was just alluding to, is to set out that 5-year strategy, is to do that plan, isn't it? And so that we can then say, we get through this year and then we'll have that strategy. This is our year plan, but how it fits into the bigger strategy will then be produced.
So how do I get comfort that these are the important things for now? My other question is this audit plan assignment? Because I understand your comment that this is a standard report. How do I get comfort that the assignments are unique to us and our risk profile, as opposed to what's happening on other members?
I can take that, Chair.
Thank you.
In respect to the individual audits which are in the plan, they are totally unique to this authority. They've already been identified on a risk basis, where we identify what areas we believe we need coverage to provide the assurance, and also which areas we've got sort of gaps or omissions or concerns with respect to the authority's risk register and in discussion with senior management. In respect to the other question that you said with respect to the 5-year sort of plan to identify what complete coverage will be, it doesn't tend to be set in stone in a 5-year plan. As you're probably aware, with respect to local authorities and any organisation presently with respect to the nature of geopolitics and the way everything's changing, things change very rapidly, and you could set a plan in sort of, March ready for the year ahead, and you might find that you have half a dozen changes to that plan throughout the year anyway, where you have to take certain audits out because they're no longer relevant to that particular area. All the areas have become much higher risk to the authority. So what you tend to do is you'll map out the whole audit universe, which is basically all of the services and all of the sectors and all of the functions which the local authority actually undertake. And then you do a risk assessment against them, which I think we've probably got outlined earlier on within this report with respect to the areas that we actually look at. We're actually risk assessing. Just have a quick scroll. But basically, there's 4 different factors that we follow with respect to looking at likelihood, and there's 4 different severities that we look at. Which page? Or is it not in this one? And we sort of give things a risk score. Now, the areas which come out at high risk, we try and cover ideally every 2 years. We don't like to leave it any longer than that. The areas that come out moderate risk, we try and get the coverage to make sure they're covered a minimum of every 5 years, or over all of the areas, moderate risk areas, for example, are covered over that 5-year period. If it falls into low risk, we don't tend to pick it up and audit it and look at it at that particular time, because we want to focus our audit time and our resources on the high risk and moderate risk areas of the organisation, which we think are potentially the highest risk for financial loss, for potential frauds, for reputational damage, for governance failure, along those lines. So it really is a fluid process to actually identify what needs to be covered. We won't just sit down and say, these are all the areas there is, but we'll look at these this year, this next year, this the next year, this the month after, because essentially we wouldn't be doing justice to the organisation of actually looking at the key areas which are required in that particular year to obviously address the identified concerns that you're likely to have and senior management are likely to have, and obviously where potential failures could or may occur.
And Chairman, I'm again reasonably reassured from that. But I can't believe I'm alone in being a member of the board that's supposed to be voting for this without having the detail of what is the criteria and having some input. Because I don't think it is unreasonable for members to bring their experience and views to the table in terms of saying, well, I agree with that or not. In the old adage of the choice of one is no choice at all, strikes me that being
So
asked
have
to
you
take this
got
on-
areas of risk concern? I mean, from the risk management.
I don't know because I haven't been able to assess that.
So what
I've been given a list with no justification as to why they are in that year and an understanding of what the other risks are and whether I might have thought they were more important.
Okay, so they've been formed from our risk register by the organisation. They've recommended that on our risk register. And that's been the basis of the presentation to us tonight, that these were the ones to move forward on.
Well,
If our risk register changes in any significant way, then those will be presented differently. I think that's what we've just heard. So what you're saying is you'd like to see more of them, the risk management log.
Partially, but let me, through you, Chairman, ask our internal auditor a question of what level of internal audit assurance would they give to an organisation that didn't question and satisfy themselves that that was the right list? If we were, as an organisation, simply to take what was recommended, what level of assurance would that generate?
We would give you a level of assurance on the work we do. External audit would give you a level of assurance based on their assessment of, in the good old days, when we had the managed audit, they would work with us and they would make a comment on how well they, what they thought was the value of internal audit and whether it covered all the main things, and they would highlight if they felt that internal audit hadn't covered those things. So that's how it used to be. That managed audit concept has disappeared now, unfortunately. But again, we build this up. It's not just from the risks that we've also got knowledge of, as we said earlier, of other authorities as well. So we know where risks are there, and we look and say, could that be a risk at North Warwickshire, for example? So that would also feature on it. We then put this through to senior management, and they look at it and say, does this feature, does this map out where the risks are that we think they are as well? So it's gone through not just audit, but also senior management as well to make sure that they're content with what's looking at. But to become the council's question, what sort of assurance? Well, ours is based, we have to give an independent assurance for a start. That's what the role of internal audit is, giving you independent assurance. It's not influenced by management. So hence the value of having an external firm or an external organisation doing it is that, they are independent of management. So there's not like they are on the payroll of the authority that they are auditing, if you see what I mean. So the independence is a bit of a dubious link there. But it's something that we build up, and we would look at it and say, well, yes, at the end of the day, what I have to do as a chief internal auditor, and Martin will have to pick up, is we have to give an opinion based on the work that we do, that we feel that the management of the risks throughout the authority is as intended. If it's not, then we report that, and that comes out in our progress reports as well. So when we bring progress reports, so you can see where we're saying, well, we're giving limited assurance on this one. So it builds up over the year to give us the overall opinion. So you'll be seeing it at different stages anyway. And I take your point on the fact we haven't broken this down over what quarter we're looking at, but we normally do that. But one of the things we want to do in the first year of the contract, the partnership, is to make sure that we talk to the officers and we actually timetable things, because some of the reasons that we've got these, as I call them, brought forward, carried forward from the previous year, is because we've put those in and officers haven't been, there's too much pressure on the officers to deliver those at that particular point in time. So the auditor hasn't been able to get the information, so we've not been able to do the audit. That's always raised, and we will raise that. And I think I raised it the last time in the progress report, so we raised those issues. But Martin will tell you that as we develop it, and as Martin's done that audit needs assessment, then we'll also build into that what quarters as well we're going to do the audits in. So
yeah, because there's particular pressure points in different parts of the organisation.
yes.
Yeah. You don't want to be spending your time with finance at the same time as external audit, for example.
We wouldn't be welcome.
You certainly wouldn't. I think it would be too challenging. Right,
So
okay.
that's a very full answer. I'm just not sure it was an answer to the question I asked.
Okay, well, maybe we need to document some of your questions and then we can share them, because internal audit will be with us ongoing for the next, an ongoing partner. So if we need to have a separate session around internal audit and how they're built up, then that's probably good for use of people's time. Alison, you want to come in on that?
I'll just add to that. I think one of the issues might be that we haven't presented an updated risk register for some time. We are working on updating the risk register, and that will come from the resources committee. So I guess when that comes, that might when you look through that, you might sort of say, oh, that's high risk in my opinion. Is that in the audit plan? So you'll be able to sort of join everything up better, I think. But we do use the risk register. We also use our knowledge. I use my knowledge of the things for me that are high risk in terms of financial controls, reconciliations, key financial systems. So those things absolutely need to be in an audit plan. So there's a bare minimum that you sort of build up from a risk point of view.
Yeah.
So I can give you that assurance that make sure all of those things are in, what I call the bread and butter stuff, I guess. And Richard wouldn't be able to give his annual audit opinion if we didn't have those type of audits.
And so I'm very happy with that. But my question really stems from the fact that for a number of years, we have not hit the internal audit target. And I just need that assurance, because I generally believe in the value of internal.
Yeah, and I do, and that's why we've moved to this this organisation away from what we did before, because it clearly failed.
And I really believe there is a significant value to us in that compare and contrast with other members of the partnership. So I'm not instinctively against this. I just need to understand how this programme fits with our risk. I genuinely believe that it is flexible and will be amended to meet emerging risks. All of that is positive stuff. But being blunt, Chairman, the report doesn't give me a basis upon which to say I have enough information to make the call.
And now
It's-
you've asked your questions, do you feel more assured from the answers you've had from Alison and Richard?
No, because both answers told me they hadn't got that information. Both answers told me that. It wasn't in the report. I heard that at least twice.
But it's in front of us tonight, so we can scrutinise that and ask those questions and then come away from that with that assurance.
Then I'm clearly not making my point clearly enough. Because I don't have that information in the report. But I'm happy that it will come to a future meeting. But in a future report, I'd like to understand the nature of risk that we are looking at and how we have prioritised those areas that are in the current programme. I get why, I get the principles, I understand that. But I would have expected a report to have set it into the context.
Okay.
But I'm happy that I will come next time.
I'm sure that it's something that will develop as the risk management log is presented to us. The risk register is further utilised by the council and things are added to that, and therefore it will drive the work that Richard and Martin do as their part of their organisation to give us those assurances. It's because it's been in such a hole before and those things haven't been there. We had one person as part of the authority doing internal audit where lots of that didn't happen. That takes a bit of a journey to get to where you want to be.
I agree, but you understand the basis and for my
Yeah,
question, my
absolutely.
concern.
Martin.
Can I just come in quickly on that, please, Chair? With respect to what you're asking for, councillor, that's obviously the joining the partnership on the 1st of April. That's the first job that I'm going to be looking to actually do, identify the audit universe and to risk assess it all. Perhaps once I've got that up and running and got something in place for that, I can bring that to the committee and show you where we actually are and where we're identifying things. Obviously, that isn't here now at this point, but that will obviously inform how the audit plan will develop going forward, and that should hopefully give you that reassurance at that point.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. So, if there are no more questions on the internal audit partnership plan, I will, do I have, on my front page? Do I have a proposal?
So, John, can I just ask another question on a complete separate issue? I am delighted to read in section 4 that the partnership with Derby City Council on council has worked well. Could we have a report at future date as to what it's actually achieved?
Policies and guidelines.
Yeah, I mean, we can bring a report back to the next meeting on, the performance for the year in terms of statistics and stuff like that. On them. Those have been provided. I'm quite happy to do a report.
And just being old-fashioned as I inevitably am, Chairman, I normally expect to see that before we agree to do it for 25, 26, but happy that we'll get that next time as well.
Thank you. Right, if that's enough, if that's questions from everyone, I'm happy to propose that from the chair. Do I have a second? Councillor Davey, thank you. Moving on to agenda item 7.
Do you want to get a vote?
Oh, huh?
You got a first,
Oh, all in favour? Thank you. Against? Abstentions? Thank you. That's carried. Thank you very much, Richard. Nice to meet you, Martin, and we'll
Thank
see you
you.
next time. Moving on to agenda item 7. Treasury Management Strategy Statement. Mira Merrick, new position. So our recommendation this evening is to adopt the clauses set out in paragraph 3.5 and to approve the Treasury Management Statement. So we have a Treasury Management Strategy. We've had one for some time. There's just some minor changes to this strategy. Do you want to go through anything else, Alison?
I'm not proposing to go through it in any detail. I mean, I'm quite happy to try and answer any questions people have got. I'm conscious of the fact that it's got a lot of information in it. It's the same format as we present every year.
Any questions from anybody? Councillor Barnett.
There's just one comment really on the investment strategy, which I think was Appendix C. And I think personally, I would rather try and avoid any investments in the US at the moment.
Okay.
I completely agree, Chair. It's a question of what do we mean by US, because the tentacles are so, well, it's enormous.
Okay, we can take that as a recommendation. Anything else? Any other questions in relation to treasury management?
But just a question, how, I've always taken it in the past, Cheryl, that the public work loan fund was pretty much the cheapest cash that was available to us. But looking at the chart on page 8, is that still the case? Because the bank rate is consistently lower, and it's probably variable over that period, whereas the Public Works Loan Board isn't. But as the forecast is that the bank rate will go down by 4%, and the Public Works Loan Board never achieves that. So whilst I am broadly, comfortable with what it is, and I know these are only an indicator of the prospects, is it still probably the best value to us? I'm sure the answer is yes, but.
Yeah, it is, but it depends, because the bank rate is a fluctuating rate and the other ones aren't. But Alison, do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, it tends to be the best rate, and we do, at certain times, so on the housing revenue account, we do get a reduction as well below what the PWRB rate is saying. So obviously that will be a lot better. But we would, when we're making a decision to externally borrow, we would always look at PWRB and other areas as well. But yeah, we've always borrowed from PWRB because it's always been the best rate historically.
Thank you. Anything else on Treasury? If not, then I'll move that from the chair. Do I have a second? Councillor Barnett, thank you. All in favour? That's carried, thank you. So moving on to agenda item 8, which is our write-off policy. So whilst we don't like to write off funds in any way, shape or form, we obviously have to have a policy for writing off irrecoverable debt. And one of the things that would sort of change if we approve the policy outlining our approach is, for example, one of the things we've got to look forward to later on in the agenda is the write-off of a debt for non-domestic rates where the person is insolvent. And one of the things we're looking at in our appendix here is the write-off limits and who can do what. And I've had a conversation with Alison about documenting and providing information about what is written off, because the suggestion is that actually it's with the section 151 officer, if the person becomes insolvent or dead, that we're actually not going to be able to recover the money. So coming to us to vote on whether or not we write it off or not is a bit irrelevant because it's irrecoverable. Whereas some of the other debts that we look at, they come back into being recoverable. So they've got different sort of limits, if you like, and different conversations around those. But if somebody is insolvent or deceased, the likelihood of that debt being recoverable in any way or becoming recoverable after being deemed to be irrecoverable seems somewhat unlikely. So, any questions on the write-off policy? Councillor Simpson.
It's along those lines, Joe, because I wholeheartedly agree with the policy set out. On page 1 of Appendix A, it sets out the write-off limits. And my question is, are they operationally effective or should they be varied?
Yeah.
Because, in reality, writing off a debt of 100 quid, above 100 quid, it's going to have to come to somebody else more often. I just think, should we have a greater limit there, particularly on revenues and benefits team leaders? I have no view on it. I just want to be assured that actually we are not creating something which is administratively burdensome for officers to manage. And secondly, £7,500 and a penny at resources board. What happens to if we have debt greater than £7,500? Does that
Comes
have
here.
to be approved by full council?
No, it comes here. That's not our limit. That's our
That's a
minimum.
That's a
That's
start.
that's our threshold that it comes to us based on.
I read it the other way about because it says the levels for authorisation. It says that up to
Yeah.
for the first
It doesn't
three.
say up
Does
to
Does it
for
say,
the others.
is it, am I intended then that that's to say above?
Yeah. So £7,500 and a penny, and anything over and above that will come here. The question I was going to ask is that too low? And practically, with some of those thresholds, £100, £1,000, £7,500, and £7,500 and above. Having section 151 officer only up to £7,500 seems quite low. That was my thinking, but it's what's practical to you.
I was going to ask the same question, because when were these figures set? I mean, 10 years ago, or were they 10 weeks ago? That's the point I'm making.
That's absolutely my concern, Chairman. In all the time I've been on the council, I cannot remember a single occasion when the board has not agreed to every one of the write-offs that I've suggested to us. I'm not trying to say that I'm disinterested in it. What is the effective value of it for members, for officers to write the report, members to read it and understand it, and then simply to nod
Make
on
the
it?
decision.
I am just wary of having something which could just be inefficient.
I think the likelihood of much coming to us with this scheme is low, actually, because the majority of what we write off is because someone's become insolvent or deceased. And the fact that they won't come to this board at all, they'll be handled by the section 151, practically makes things a lot easier and a lot more straightforward, because we can vote against that if we like, but it's not going to change a lot, is it? So actually, I think the limit, we'll try it. We can try it for 6 months and see how many come. The reality is most are in the insolvency category. So the likelihood is not going to have a practical problem implication anyway. But that's just my view. Alison, what do you think?
So just in terms of the limits that we, at the moment, I have to write off everything that's up to a certain limit, which at the moment is about £6,000 that then comes to resources committee. And it's not, it changes every year because it's based on like an RPI increase. It's
So it
very,
does move.
it's very convoluted how it's calculated. So these limits of the 100 and the 1,000 will actually make it a lot better than it currently is at the moment. It's a bit difficult to know whether those are the right limits because we haven't really tried it yet. But you're absolutely right in terms of the resources board. Most of the ones that we bring that are over sort of the 6,000-ish mark are insolvency actually. So if we don't bring those and they're written off by section 151, you probably won't get very many.
And what I asked Alison to do on the back of that is so that we know what is being written off is almost the other way around, saying this is where we are with writing. This is how much we've written off, and communicate to us in that way rather than, so we know where we are.
Yeah, I'm very happy with that. I think that makes sense.
Councillor Barnett and Councillor Humphreys, I think have got there.
I think generally in terms of the policy, I fully agree with it. I would like to see some form of report after the fact, though. It wouldn't have to be every month, but maybe a couple of times a year just to report what has been written off.
I think that's reasonable.
I
Councillor
was
Humphreys.
wondering, like, when recoverable debt, does it extend because of the insolvency process? Because sometimes, we're leaving it on there because it's recoverable, and we're leaving it again because it's recoverable, and then eventually we write it off. And when we've sat sometimes in the meetings of write-off, there's six-figure sums we're writing off.
Yeah,
It's
sometimes
not
they're.
small amounts of money when it's total.
No, non-domestic rates aren't, are they? And it's also one of the things that makes me laugh is it goes back to being recoverable. I'm thinking, what's changed? But I think we need to have a programme of clearing up some of those that information that came to the last board meeting, where there was things on there from 2009. I think we need to see a programme, not necessarily the different write-offs for permission, but a programme of how that's being managed down so it's cleaner and most relevant years.
and what really truly is recoverable. And the other one is actually, you know, seeing whether or not those, how much is being written off and whether or not those limits are reasonable. And then I had Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Chair. Again, it's where the limits are set. You know, I do feel that the lower, I do like the idea of everything being dealt with at the lowest administrative level possible, because the cost of officer time is significant and can't be easily reimbursed. But I do think there's also the matter of public confidence. So I do think that upper level does have to be there. I can just imagine the reports of anyone coming around and saying the councillors have abdicated their responsibility. You've got officers, you know, writing off, as David says, 6-figure sums in total after an FOI request. So I think that I can understand why the levels are possibly at the lower level conservative to start with, but I wouldn't object to seeing that rise as the system embeds.
Lovely, thank you. Any other questions on that lifetime policy? Do I have a proposer? Councillor Humphreys, a second. Councillor Simpson, all in favour? And thank you. Moving on to agenda item 9, non-domestic rates policy. So we have to have policies on non-domestic rates. And these are some slight changes to the retail, hospitality and leisure policy as per the autumn budget. To approve the updates to the supporting small business policy, so small business rate relief, and to approve the policy outlining the council's approach to awarding discretionary rate relief. So there's those 3 policies there. We take them one by one or as a whole? Has anyone got any questions in relation to any of these 3 policies or one in particular?
Just a very broad, impossible question. Are we allowing sufficient discretion? Because I think whenever you write a policy, it is difficult to encompass all the areas that should be encompassed. And again, it's sort of following on from the last one. I'm wary that if it's outside the officer's discretion, it will have to come back to us. I absolutely accept and agree with your point earlier. There is that balance between empowering officers to make practical decisions and actually coming to the board for oversight. But in the cases where we need to show discretion, quite often that needs to happen quickly to be of any value to the person to whom we are showing discretion. So, Chairman, you know, if you're comfortable that we are being as generous with the discretion as it's appropriate, then I'm happy. But I think that when we get into these areas, sometimes it's showing discretion to allow a company to continue to trade and employ people and be effective, as opposed to, you know, perhaps hanging on for a bit more cash than they reasonably have got. So I genuinely, you know, accept that's an amorphous, broad question. I just want to be convinced that we're doing the right thing here. And I don't want to write cash off unless we have to, but if we're writing it off, we want to be sure it's being effective.
Yeah, Alison, have you come across anywhere you thought you haven't quite got the authority you've needed to have within the function?
No. I mean, you know, even with the discretionary policies, like in Appendix C, there are guidelines, and there sort of has to be guidelines because otherwise it's really difficult to make decisions, aren't there? We do have to rely on some of the information that we get from, you know, valuation officers on some of these, so that can sometimes hold things up. But no, I don't think so. No.
If you like to be more pointed in my question, it's when we start talking about ratepayers who would otherwise suffer hardship. I can honestly tell you, Chairman, every bill I've ever paid enables me to suffer hardship. And when I pay our council tax bill every month, that creates hardship.
I'd like some rate relief on that because I've never had a cruise.
Non-domestic rate relief we're talking about here. We'll come to that one later. But on that basis, is there any more questions on these policies, on the 3 policies? Are we happy that they move from draft and we approve them this evening? Does that a proposal, Councillor Simpson? Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Davey. All in favour? Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item 10. The lovely irrecoverable debt. So we have on here a total irrecoverable non-domestic rates totaling £41,656, which is due to insolvency. It's one item. And it's one value of 41,000. Then this is exactly what we were talking about when we talked about the write-off policy. This will no longer come to this board because it will be managed by the Section 151 officer, because we can't undo insolvency by voting no, unfortunately. So, do I have a proposer for that? Councillor Simpson, thank you very much. Second, Councillor Bell, all in favour? Thank you very much, that's carried. Moving that on to agenda item 11, which is local council tax support scheme. So this is an enormous, great big document. I hope you've all read it from cover to cover. And this document is updated annually with minor changes. And talking to Alison, the government changed some thresholds, which are actually really difficult to see within the policy. So reflect, but this is simply changed to reflect those threshold changes. Nothing else. So this is as was, apart from some of those threshold changes. But I think there was a question that we were posed about this one that I think Councillor Bell has.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. I wonder if somewhere hidden in here, because I can't pretend to have read it, is council tax relief for people who are at end of life. In my role at council, I've been asked to check this around all the districts and boroughs. I'm not sure if that would be in this policy, the tax support policy. I think that would be under tax regulation. But I can find that out for you. If you could, yeah, I don't think it's in this policy, but we do, I'm pretty sure we do have that under the regulation.
To be researching this policy for that, thinking it must be in there somewhere.
No, I don't think it's in this policy. I think it's, there's categories under council tax regulations and categories where you basically don't have to pay council tax or you get a discount. And I think it's one of those categories. So not in this one. Thank you.
Councillor Stewart and Councillor Simpson.
It was just a matter of scale and scope. It was a significant, it was a very, very long document. I am going to pretend I've read it all. And I can say that I don't remember anything about end of life specifically in there, but I thought it could have been covered by the section. But again, it might just be my ignorance, but it would have been nice in the preamble in what was a fairly brief document compared to what was actually followed up, to have some kind of scope in terms of how much we spend or receive or something, but there's nothing in terms of our levels of.
So how much relief we provide to
Absolutely,
people
yeah,
as a council. So out of our 8 million or whatever we collect.
Yeah. I can get those figures for you.
That'd be useful.
And I think, because this is an annual report, so
Yeah.
if we make a note to
So
include
have that
that next
regular,
year.
yeah.
Yeah.
That would be good to understand so how much relief we do offer.
And it'd be interesting if there's any kind of, I would get granular data about wards or whatever, but if there isn't, to see if there's any increase in uptake or decrease in uptake. It's because a lot of things are unseen, in the whole. So talking about pupil premium numbers in school, we've had 600% increase in 4 years. So it's possible that we could see something, of the trends, or maybe not, or around uptake as well.
And also some of the other things, I mean, I've had a resident come to me because theirs is stopped, their council tax relief stopped, and when their HIP went through they've appealed and they're going through a process, but actually they lost their PIP and then they lost their council tax relief, and it was quite burdensome all at once.
Yeah.
So actually, it's, what are some of the processes around that we support residents with, and whether or not there's a bit of a lag in time, especially if they're appealing the decision or whatever. So there's quite a lot of people that actually come to councillors about this particular. It is one of the things we do get people come talk to you about. That was Councillor Simpson had his hand up, and then Councillor Barner.
Yeah. So it's again another in principle issue. Reading the background section, some of this is stuff we have no choice in.
No.
On the previous, it was to adopt something that was a mandated change by government, and I've got no doubt that our officers are following whatever it is we have to do, irrespective of what our policy says. I'm just wary of the value of being brought to us dealing with a mandatory change, but we have no choice over whether we, I personally would prefer two-line report that says we've updated the local council tax support scheme in line with what the government requires us to do, and save all this stuff, because it takes time for people to write it.
It takes
us
time
to
for
read
people to look through it and read it and
Yeah.
try and find where the changes are.
And I understand, there could be something in the constitution which requires us to say yes. But actually, I prefer that we change the constitution to say stuff that is required of us by government, we automatically incorporate into,
Our policies, and they're taking us red.
yeah,
I get that. We talked a little bit about that earlier, didn't we? So it said actually, finding where, and this isn't put together by us, this is given to us, we have to adopt it. It's reviewed and updated annually. And this was government changed them some thresholds, it's really difficult to see what they've actually changed as well. So you wanted to come in on that, and then I'd.
Yeah, just
Councillor
to say, I totally accept what you're saying, because I'm struggling to find thresholds myself in here. It is our local council tax support scheme, but we haven't made any changes. So the only changes that are made are sort of thresholds that government have given us, but we have to have it approved annually by members, so to enforce it. So it has to come to you. I know it's a big document, and it's really difficult to take it all in and understand it, but we have to do that. That's not our constitution, that's government regulation. We have to have it approved.
then, shut up. If we're only doing what we have to do, but it does seem
It does seem a little bit laborious and arduous, doesn't it, for the value of it? Maybe then in the recommendation to the board, it's that this is our annual approval of the policy. That is, something along the lines, so that people then don't think I've got to read all that, maybe, or gives a bit of guidance.
which I'm delighted that my colleague has read it.
It's ingested everywhere. I've got Councillor Barnett and Councillor Davey wanted to come in with a question.
Yeah, I just need to come back on Councillor Stewart's request for getting some data. I think it'd be useful if we had it as both monetary value and the number of cases. I think that'd be useful.
Context. Councillor Davey.
My point was to follow on from Councillor Stewart's as well. With the increase in the pension credit claims, once you qualify for guaranteed credit, then you get full council tax support anyway. So the more people that claimed or applied for and qualified for guaranteed pension credit, then those numbers would have gone up and included the full council tax support as well. So with the increase in the government pushing after the winter fuel business for people to put in pension credit claims, if they were successful, then it's full relief on their council tax.
So would it be more useful to people to see a dashboard of, people that claim different things in our borough, by area, by whatever, however way we want to cover it, but the support we give and in what category?
If it's easy to produce, I'm just conscious
Yeah.
is I've made a brief request, which seemed fairly simple, and now all of a sudden I might have created a whole industry. At the same
But
time,
we
I'm
have
talking
talked
about
about
officer
some of these
efficiency.
automated dashboards, and we have
Yeah,
got some technology that is in
If
progress.
it is a button press, then
So
I
it
I
might
would
be.
say that's very, very useful indeed. If it's going to impact on our ability to deliver services, I'm happy just to take whatever's
I
available.
mean,
But
personally,
actually, I think it shows the level of support we are giving to our residents.
Yeah.
And that then becomes part of how we deliver value.
personally, I think an annual report would be sufficient. I think anything more than that is a bit overkill.
Just to say, on the council tax support, we do have it per parish, because the number of people claiming council tax support comes off of the tax base.
Right.
Which is bizarre, I know, but it comes off of the tax base, so we do have that level. I don't know if we have the amount, we might do, we definitely have the numbers.
Yes, because that's why in one of the areas I'm on Coleshill Parish, on Coleshill Town Council, and we had a decline in our council tax base this year. And it wasn't because of number of houses, it was about number of claimants.
Yes, yeah.
That's why there was a decline in the council tax base. So yeah, so that's the challenge.
That expands a lot from 2 years ago, because I was thinking, where's all these houses gone?
Yes. It's a strange way of doing it, actually. It does seem counterintuitive, doesn't it? Okay,
And so, does that roll in then to that conversation that we collectively have been having with the county council about?
yes.
So it's not necessarily we haven't built the houses.
No, we've
It's
just got more claimants for council tax.
that explains an awful lot.
Yeah, so,
It's a stupid way of calculating it though, because you've missed
So
out.
your council tax base is reduced by the number of people who are now not paying
Paying it.
council tax because they are entitled to some level of relief.
I would have hoped that the county council would have understood that, instead of accusing us of only building 45 houses.
Yeah, we actually built 285,
Councillor
of
Bell,
which
there are many
I think
things.
that's what
Councillor
Councillor Watson went back to them with
Yeah.
in terms of response. Councillor Watson went back to them with that as a response. He said, no, it's not that there are only that number of houses. The council tax base has reduced because of the number of people now requiring council tax support.
I also explained it, but they're still quoting 45 houses.
And what annoys me, and when it comes to dealing with education and money being released to do Walton School and the Queen Elizabeth Academy, I was told you've only built 45 houses, why do you need any money for education? That's
High
what-
levels of deprivation.
Can we put in the complaint? If our figures have been misquoted or not being taken and we're provided with updated, they're still not using them, can we?
I think
complain?
Councillor Watson is taking up that
Yeah,
mantle.
we did complain.
Do I mean formally and officially?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
believe
I think he's taking up that mantle.
Yeah.
Yes. So, back to our recommendation this evening now, to approve the local council tax support scheme for 25-26 as one of our annual votes that we have to take. So let's just make sure we understand that. So this is an annual vote. Do you have a proposal? Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Davey. All in favour? Thank you, that's unanimous. I don't think I have anything else on my. I have.
Still got papers, right?
Yeah, I haven't got a gold paper. But I will then, so move to agenda item 12, which is the exclusion of the press and public, to consider in accordance with section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, whether it is in the public interest that the public and press be excluded from the meeting for the following item of business, on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined by Schedule 12A of the Act. Of the proposer, Councillor Bell, seconded by Councillor Humphreys, all in favour, thank you. And then there is an exempt extract of minutes of the meeting of the Resources Board